session. Yes, got it. Welcome everyone to our session. Thank you so much for joining us today. Are you able to hear me?
This one, Amina, Ebony is here. I'm just adding her.
Okay. Can you hear me as I speak?
Yes, I can. I can.
Okay.
You're audible. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. All of our participants are here. Thank you so much for joining us in this session. So very glad to have you today. The name of our session is Centering Blackness in Books and Film, Play, Culture, Heritage, Identity, and the Black Art Library. That is the name of our Salon session today, and my name is Amina Humphrey. I am your host. Again, so very glad to have you here with us. I'm on the steering committee of the Critical Media Literacy Conference of the Americas. I'm also the organizer for the Art, Race, Social Justice Salons, and we are so very glad to have you here today with us. I want to take time to acknowledge the many people who have volunteered their time for the last year in order to manifest this free and virtual conference for the second year in a row. So please, if you see any of the volunteers, just know we've spent many hours in the last year putting this together. So thank you for that. Also, let's see. We have a slide here. I think I just saw it. Can you pull that slide up again in regards to the interpretation services? In some of our salons, we will have interpretation services, but also additional information that you should know about our program. Please go to the presenters, the sessions. You'll find Zoom links. We want you to spread the word about our conference and to share it on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, YouTube, CMLCA for all. Also, if you have your networks that are interested in attending, please share with them about registering for this conference. We want everyone to be participating with us. A couple of other housekeeping issues, or should I say housekeeping topics. This session, parts of this session will be recorded, but the artist's information, their films and the like, that will not be recorded. But if you're under the age of 18 years of age or prefer to not be recorded, please turn off your video and remove your name in order to be anonymous. If a problem occurs and the Zoom closes, first try to re-enter the same Zoom room. And if that doesn't work, go to the lobby on the visual schedule of the conference labeled Help. Our salons. This is a space, unlike some of the other spaces, this is a space for rich discussions and enjoyment, to exchange ideas and to create new ones. So all perspectives are welcomed here. You don't need to be an expert in the topic. I'll be hosting and guiding the discussion to ensure that everyone who wants to speak will have an opportunity to share in this supportive, meaningful, and collaborative space that encourages respectful participation. The different salons will have a specific focus for the 60-minute discussions. And to give you some more background context for salons, this is coming from the tradition of the Harlem Renaissance. These salon-like parties help to shape this renaissance, a supportive, welcoming environment for artists to gather. And as they say down south, kick off your shoes, relax your feet, enjoy, discuss ideas, and build community. And now I would like to introduce our discussants and the order in which they will be sharing today. Everyone will have up to 10 minutes. Our filmmakers, foremost, you'll have 10 minutes, and Ebony, because her film is about 20 minutes, she'll have 20 minutes. So everyone will share their art, and then we will proceed with discussion about the art that has been shared today. But with that said, please let me introduce Ms. Asma Walton. Asma Walton is a Detroit native, arts educator, and an ardent developer of the Black Cultural Archive. Walton completed a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Art Education from Michigan State University in 2017. In 2019, Walton was appointed Romare Bearden Graduate Museum Fellow at St. Louis Art Museum. In February of 2020, Walton established a project called Black Art Library. Black Art Library is a collection of publications, exhibition catalogs, and theoretical texts about Black art and visual culture intended to become a public archive and a permanent space in Detroit. Our next discussant, Foremost. Foremost is an artist, educator, and social justice activist based in LA. He holds a bachelor's degree in art history, a master's degree in education, along with a multi-subject teaching credential, and is currently pursuing an MFA at Cal Arts. His art forms include video, drawings, and collage. His art uses everyday materials and spaces to think about their uses, how those uses are fluid, and how that drives his imagination to speculate in appropriate new playgrounds, as well as reclaim playgrounds for the Black being. He is engaged in a play practice aimed at disrupting and subverting the normal state of affairs and systems of oppression. Let me just say that one more time. He has emerged in a play practice aimed at disrupting and subverting the normal state of affairs and systems of oppression. Simultaneously, he stays within a dream space, a real space for evoking ephemeral laughter, pleasure, and enjoyment, but permanently revealing socio-political conventions and biases. And our last discussant, an artist, Ebony Bailly is a Blaxican filmmaker and photographer from Central California whose work explores cultural intersections and diaspora. Her films have been screened at festivals and forums in the US, Mexico, and Europe. Her photos have appeared in NPR, LA Times, and Remezcla. She was awarded the Samuel L. Coleman Scholarship at the Haiti International Film Festival and was selected for the Tomorrow's Filmmakers Today program by HBO and the Hola Mexico Film Festival. She studied journalism at USC and completed her master's degree in documentary film at the University of Mexico. Without further ado, I turn it over to our artist, and thank you so much as we begin with Asma.
Hello, everyone. My name is Asma Walton. I'm the founder of the Black Art Library, and I give you guys a little background on how I got to creating it, but I also have like a quick slideshow to kind of show you a little bit of what the project looks like. But I studied art education in undergrad, but I knew I wasn't interested in teaching in a traditional classroom setting. So I decided to not get my teaching certification, kind of against what advisors and everyone else was saying. But I thought I could always come back and get certified to teach. I wanted to figure out a way that I could engage with the community more in doing arts education, but I wasn't really sure how to do that. I kind of had an idea about maybe working in museums, but at that time, I really didn't know anything about working in museums. Michigan State didn't really have a museum studies program. They're kind of building upon that now, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I actually decided that I was just gonna go get my master's. So I ended up getting my master's from NYU in arts politics. And kind of during that time in that program, we looked at the arts from a lot of different perspectives, obviously how they kind of interrelate to politics, but really just the world in general. But I also got to explore some different kind of paths and kind of careers and kind of look at institution building when it comes to the arts. So my brain was kind of going in a certain direction, but then I started to do a few internships. So I interned at the Toledo Museum of Art. I had a fellowship there, and then I moved on to the St. Louis Art Museum. And while I was there, right before the pandemic hit. So I had an idea that I wanted to start something that I could use as a resource to kind of educate people more on Black visual arts. Because one, that was something I loved. And then I kind of had an idea to maybe combine that with a love that I had for art books. So that was kind of how Black Art Library came to mind. I had no idea what it would really turn into. I had no idea how people would engage with it. I just knew I had an idea and I thought, well, I'm just gonna start doing it and see what happens. So I created an Instagram account so I could, show people the books I was collecting as I was doing it, and it went from there. So now I'm kind of going to show you guys a slideshow to. Yes, I can show it this way. Can you guys see that all right?
Yes.
Okay. So really, essentially, Black Art Library is not a physical space yet. So the Instagram account is kind of where everything is. I tell people that's where they can go find out information, because I also don't have a website yet for this. So this is kind of the way that I can share everything with people. I'm kind of always available. I always tell people they can ask me questions. I'm the only one that runs the Instagram account, so I'm always available to kind of answer any questions that I can. So when I started the collection, a few of the books came from my personal collection, which are the 5 books that are on the left side of the screen. Those were books that friends had gifted me, that I have bought for myself, that I was interested in, and I thought they were important. So that was kind of my first donation to the library. And the other 2 books, the orange one at the top is Buford Delaney's retrospective from the studio in Harlem in 1970. And I'm super excited because I found that online used for $50, and I thought, oh, like this seems like it's a thing. So that was the real kind of first purchase for the library. And I kind of did the library all throughout the pandemic, just, through the Instagram account and through some virtual talks. I explored the idea more with people. But when I moved back to Detroit, August 2020, I was given an opportunity to do a pop-up at a space that an artist, his name is Tony Rave, he owns it, and he eventually wants to turn it into pretty much a space where artists can be nurtured in kind of all forms of the sense. He is not only an artist, but he is also a chef. So he wants this to be a space where artists can come get fed, they can rest, they can, work on their craft. He just wants to build something like that for Black artists in Detroit, because they don't have a lot of spaces like that, or really any. So I was happy to be able to come in this space and do whatever I could to make it kind of a pop-up, because it is an empty house, but he did have some beautiful pews in it. So I got some furniture and I decided to do just one weekend as a pop-up for the library. And this right here is me with kind of the little setup that I did, books on the table, and I had bought those 2 bookshelves from Facebook Marketplace. And from this pop-up, I actually ended up getting an opportunity to exhibit the Black Art Library at the Museum of Contemporary.
Since no one else is jumping in, I was trying to get my thoughts together on all of that great artwork. But I want to say particularly thank you, Ebony, because I think that in the US at least. First of all, generally speaking, we know there's an extreme lack of understanding of what it means to be Afro-Latinx, just generally, because of the country's and the society's poor understanding of race and ethnicity and all of the stereotypes and all the things and what have you. So there's not a sufficient understanding of Latinidad in general. There certainly is not an understanding of Afro-Latinidad. So even then, as another layer of that, for what understanding there might be or what sensibilities there might be, I think that the United States is used to thinking in terms of Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican Republic. You know, to a certain degree, it may think of Brazil and what have you, but there are countries in which there's not a sense of Afro-Latinx society, at least in the minds of people in the US. Mexico, probably first and foremost, is a lack of understanding of Afro-Mexican culture and peoples. And so to highlight that, for this film to be focusing on Afro-Americanos in particular, I think is just necessary. I hope that it gets widely seen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, like what you said was important, you know, the transatlantic slave trade wasn't just in the US, it was all over the Americas. So I think that those types of stories are important to highlight and what goes on with the descendants of those people. Thank you.
And also with Ebony, Asma, foremost, can you elaborate even more? This is for all three of you, this question. Can you elaborate even more about how you came to be with this particular project? Give us more background, contextual background about your passions around these topics and how they developed, when they developed.
Well, I can jump in. So me specifically, I had to take art history courses, of course, in undergrad, doing art education, but I didn't really realize until maybe after grad school about how much that I was not taught and how much I wasn't really exposed to in those courses, about all the artists, the Black artists specifically, even working within just the US that I had never heard of. And luckily I have, like my mom, she's into art and stuff. So I would learn, sometimes from her, but really I had to do all of that like research on my own, like after graduating, just out of my own interest. And I just started to think like that there needs to be an easier way that people can get this information. And kind of my thought process was, well, I guess if I can put all the information that I can find on Black visual artists across the diaspora, then at least people can have like one place that they know they can come to and that they can find out more about that specific artist that they're researching, that they want to study and use for source materials that a curator might want to put a show together on, and they can't find all of these books in one place because so many of these books either, they only did one printing, there were only 500 copies, produced, and then somebody decides they want to sell the copies that they have for like $5,000 on the internet, and people can't afford that. So this was just my way to make things more accessible and just to put it there. And that just came from me realizing how much that didn't exist.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in my second year at CalArts as an MFA 2 student, and my first year was completely online. We were engaged in a lot of distance learning, and so I really saw it as an opportunity to explore a different type of medium. I had never worked with video before, and really just wanted to like play with that medium. I've always sort of been a playful person. Like I include a lot of play like in my teaching, and just like my relationships and how I interact with the world and how I exist in the world. But I think a play is like a real antithesis to capitalism. to a lot of these like critical issues that we face sort of in this world, racism, settler colonialism, environmental terrorism. Like I see play as a way that can be a disruption to all of those things. Because play is so autotelic, because we do it simply just to do it, right? It's so it makes me think about the sort of importance of like movement work and being so involved with like Black Lives Matter, Los Angeles. I think there are two parts to movement work. One part is, you know, actually like disrupting, dismantling systems of oppression. And then the other part of that is imagining and sort of dreaming like what we want freedom to look like and what we want those spaces to be. And I think I'm really interested in utopia, which I think, you know, sometimes I'm interested in like utopia, but little u, not big U utopia. Like I want utopia to be for like all of us, not just like, you know, those in positions of power. Because I think in the past, like, you know, for the colonizer, like utopia is colonization. So I'm like, I don't want that utopia. But I think that utopia can be a response to crisis. And I think we're living in a crisis. And I think that's what's something that really sort of brought me to this video of like wanting to create that space and wanting to exist in it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
For JAMAICA Tamarindo, it was my thesis project. I studied the master's at the National University of Mexico. And I knew I wanted to do something on Blackness in Mexico. I had done a short film about Black migrants in Mexico, which I was trying to put on, but I couldn't find. But so I knew I wanted to go deeper into like Afro Mexicanidad. And I had this like giant idea of doing all of this stuff of like touching on family, history, food, and all this stuff, right? But obviously like it went focusing more on the Flor de Jamaica y Tamarindo. And that's because I went out with my friend, Leona, who's the person with the braids in the film. All the people in the film are my friends. And so that's kind of how I like built the trust to answer one of the questions that was inside. But we were talking about food. We're both vegetarians. We both like to cook. We both love food. So we are just talking about food and stuff. And then she was like, did you know that La Flor de Jamaica was from Africa? And I was like, what? Like, I didn't know that. Like this whole time I grew up drinking agua de Jamaica. I grew up eating the candies of the tamarindo candies, and I didn't know that they were both from Africa. So I think from there, that was like what really just held my focus, was like, how can I make it focus on these two plants, but still talk about like bigger ideas of Blackness, racism, legacy, and all that stuff in Mexico. And so I kind of used Jamaica y Tamarindo as like a metaphor to represent the historic presence of Blackness in Mexico, but also the historic erasure of Blackness in Mexico. Because just like Jamaica y Tamarindo, that are both from the continent of Africa, but nobody knows in Mexico, the same happens with Afro-Mexicans, that they've been in Mexico since slavery, since colonial times. Some folks even say even since before then, no? And so but nobody knows, like the presence is very little known. I feel like just recently in the past like 2 years, it's been a little more widely known in Mexico. So that's how I kind of played with the food aspect, the Jamaica y Tamarindo.
And thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that context. And I want to open up the floor even more. We have only a few more minutes, about 2 to 3 more minutes of sharing, because our schedules are really back to back today, and we have another session that starts at 11. But I want to make sure that your voice is heard and that you're able to share questions or comments. So any other questions or comments, and then I'll go to the chat. Amanda says in the chat, all your works make me think about counter narratives, particularly in the context of educational settings and materials. Have you all collaborated with educators or learning institutions to present these narratives and knowledge?
I can jump. Oh. You can go.
Okay. actually, I am working on doing, well, one, that's something that I'm super interested in. I really like being able to get what I'm doing into schools, like trying to get like maybe small versions of the Black Art Library into some like high schools and some of the Detroit public schools that have libraries, but also kind of talking to educators and showing how they can kind of, you know, put some of this into the things that they're teaching and how, you know, to integrate it into the curriculums that are already there, because a lot of this information is not going to be information that they're going to come across when they're, you know, just teaching what they're, you know, said they're, you know, supposed to be teaching. So I really want to be able to get educators to have a greater understanding of how this all relates. And I have a program coming up when I'm supposed to be kind of sharing the library with some teachers and kind of talking to them about how it can be a tool. So hopefully this will be a first step into doing a little bit more of that.
Sorry. JAMAICA's under education distribution. So most of the, where it gets screened, most of the places where it gets screened, there's like universities, colleges. I'm also really interested in like community screening. So I try to do a lot of community screenings, especially in Mexico. And it's also in some libraries, but I would definitely like it to be in more like college and university libraries. Because I think I definitely made the film thinking about like an educational setting. So I would love it if it was like in those types of archives.
I haven't actually connected with schools just yet, but that does sound like something to pursue. The film's going to be going to the Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery, and it's going to be shown there. And I've done like a small artist residency with some folks up in Humboldt County, like where the film was actually shot. But yeah, absolutely. Like working with teachers, potentially developing a curriculum would be wonderful. Yeah.
And also, I just want to share, Ebony's film has been adopted at California State University, Dominguez Hills, where I work, through Canopy, Kanopy. So all students, you know, you have access to that faculty, to Canopy, so you can see her film on Canopy. And if you are interested, and again, please follow and like our presenters on their social media handles. Follow them, as well as follow Critical Media Literacy Conference of the Americas for all on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. And I want to say to everyone who came today, I want to acknowledge you. I see some of my students, colleagues, other artists, educators, researchers. Thank you for attending this session. Any other closing comments as we move forward to the next session, which starts at 11 o'clock? Thank you once again for participating today, showing up so very early here on the West Coast. And for those on the East Coast, thank you for sharing your afternoon with us. Much appreciated. And I look forward to connecting with you artists as well as the audience here throughout the conference and beyond the conference. Thank you again so much, and have a good day.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.